Greetings, everyone. This is the Hipster Snek. A few months back, I covered a DS RPG game named Seventh Dragon and mentioned that it hails from a series of games that never got released outside of Japan. So today, I plan to follow up on that with the first of the PSP RPGs that came after Seventh Dragon 2020. Sega took the core concept from the original and ran with it here. Dragons are still a spaceborne cosmic horror bent on eating humankind. They also took efforts to improve upon what had already been established. Put another way, you're no longer just playing a ripoff of Etrian Odyssey, so there's that. Thanks to the power of fan translations, you can play these games for yourselves now. Seventh Dragon 2020 starts off in the, barely still futuristic year of 2020, much to all our surprises, I'm sure. There, a mysterious organization, Murakumo, is given special jurisdiction just in time for dragons to invade the Earth. At the same time, your main characters are applying for work with Murakumo. And like before, you'll get to customize your party from greatly simplified list of classes, as several of the jobs from the first game were consolidated into just 5. Samurai, the heavy armor tank class, Trickster for the rogue, Destroyer for the monk, Psychic for the mage, and Hacker for the buff-debuff specialists. You also get to pick the portrait/polys for them, their names, and even a voice actor, which is all a really good touch. Sadly, the party size is reduced to 3, but the simplified and consolidated class system does make it so that crunch won't hurt too much. Right out of the gate, the game has similar pacing to the first. The first few fights, you might want to hover near the full heal save point that you find and grind a bit before you start taking the greater challenges. But not too long after the tutorial dungeon, you'll be given the skill system, which is where the differences in class will become readily apparent. As you battle, you'll gain skill points, SP, as a specific secondary currency to spend on purchasing new skills and subsequently powering them up. This gives you room to customize each of your heroes as you see fit, even in between proper level ups. I feel this system gives you a bit more slack overall, since the cost of the skills don't rise as you level, which was by de facto the case in the first game. And just like before, enemies come in random encounters, but dragons have a physical overworld presence visible on the map. However, it feels like the sense of scope is better portrayed here, as your chibi-style characters look markedly smaller than even the tiny dragons on any given map, and the truly tremendous ones really do tower over you. For me, that kinda helped get me in the proper David slaying Goliath sense of scope, with something that this should properly have. The AI for the dragons is kinda the same as before, with some patrolling, some chasing, and some will stand guard over specific gates and won't go down till they're dealt with. And like before, the dragons that aren't standing watch over gates are capable of shoving enemies out of battles in order to have a swing at you. So, just like before, you'll need to think about how you want to progress through each of these dragon-infested dungeons. As you go through, you'll see different themes for each dungeon layout, and different gimmicks will come with each, both in the forms of mazes and various puzzles, such as in the ice dungeon where you work your way to higher floors and then hop down a floor at a time in order to get to new locations to proceed through. All in all, it's pretty intuitive, and not such a huge change in pace to distract from the core gameplay and the strong skill emphasis that's still placed on combat. Not that that's all you'll be doing, because you'll also be collecting resources the dragons drop, called Ds. You'll also work on expanding your base, humanity's final line of hope, at least in Japan, which not only shelters the people that you'll rescue in the field, but also can expand the armor and weapons you can buy in the shops, and to give you other various facilities with different uses. I really like things like this, since certain expansions can also teach you more about the characters you're interacting with. It really humanizes the world that your humans are fighting for. And, simply put, it looks great. Not only do several enemies from the first game clearly make a sprite to poly conversion with pizzazz, but the new designs work great too. The humans look good and maintain that super deformed style that we saw in the first game, so despite the titles having very different aesthetics, there's definitely a thematic consistency between them. What the upgrade to polys does allow, however, is a slightly angled camera that gives a deeper and more dynamic view of the world around you. Fairly early in the game is the dungeon named the Cage of Rails, which definitely lives up to its name, and you end up going hundreds of meters in the air over the course of it. It's a small touch, but it gives each level a distinct and fun environment to explore and a sense of depth to the world. Combine together the fact that this is an anime-esque world full of super colorful characters and monsters, and you'll have a treat for the eyes. The music is solid stuff all the way through, too. It mostly consists of fast-paced riffs that really get to the heart of the adventure that a fast-paced RPG should have. The dragons in particular get a very cool boss song to call their own, which is a killer track, whatever it's called. All in all, it's really good stuff, except for one special exception that I really can't avoid. You see, for some reason that I'm sure didn't involve any toad licking whatsoever, Sega decided that it was a good idea to have you rescue Hatsune Miku. You'll do this in the form of a side mission that is absolutely essential if you want to kill every single dragon in the game, and by name and design of the mission doesn't really call any attention to itself. So I guess what I'm saying is that I was maliciously tricked into rescuing Hatsune Miku for her to sing over top most of the tracks in the game and guaranteeing that they sound tinny and unpleasant. Thankfully, that is optional, and you're free to completely opt out of the auto-tune anytime, or just never turn it on. And if you think about it, if you know what mission to look out for, you can just let that one slide. I mean, if you're already killing near 200 dragons anyway, what's one to overlook? I'm just one Snek. I can't realistically be expected to save every single person in Japan. If we have to sacrifice a few Vocaloids, I say that's a small price to pay for humanity's victory. And speaking of, are there other issues I take with the game? Well, I must say, I do prefer RPGs with larger party sizes, but that's kinda nitpicky. The game also has a really bad habit of talking more and ultimately saying less, as it feels a need to force way more plot-moving characters and even one of two completely uninteresting navigator characters who practically do nothing over the course of the game. I know this kind of thing is standard in really anime-esque games, but it's a habit that's got to die. These navigator characters never do anything but slow the pacing of the game down, with only one exception. And it's not like the game is so complex that it really requires full-bore tutorials in the first place. To say nothing that because there's generally a tighter through-line for the game's events and more major plot events that requires more exposition, including brief moments where we get to see how the United States is faring against the Dragon Horde for reference to our own struggles, it makes the unnecessary characters feel that much more unnecessary. That aside, a more legitimate complaint would be that the game tended to line up its dungeons in descending order of coolness. You have this incredible and surreal run through an upside-down city hall or spiraling mass of railroad 600 meters high with a boss against a rail cannon dragon. And then you have this super cool undead theme zone with this interesting maze area. The aforementioned time the navigator literally does anything in the game, forced though it may be. Not long after, you end up doing really generic fire and ice theme levels that have nothing else interesting going on. So the further in and the stronger I got, the less fun it was. Thankfully, I can safely say that this is saved by having an incredible endgame segment that you really must see for yourselves, and it greatly picks up the pace in the game's 11th hour. So, all in all, how's it stack up? It's a more elegant game in terms of its mechanical polish than the first, with skills being easier to learn and master, and the overall maps being more dynamic with different, better focused themes. While it is more streamlined, you're much less likely to just meander into a dungeon not knowing how difficult the enemies in it may be. It has a strong emphasis on base building and resource gathering. You really feel the wages of war as you fight for humanity's survival. It's a solid improvement from the first game, and it removes many of the issues with the quest system that I had with the first. It's what a sequel should be, improving and striving more to develop its own unique identity. As I said before, with the aforementioned fan translation, you can play it for yourself and find out firsthand just how exciting this game can really be. And seriously, as an aside, Sega, if you compiled all the 7 Dragon games, released them on Steam, it'd sell like hotcakes, I guarantee it. Just don't leave us hanging on this. This has been the Hipster Snek. If you liked today's video, please hit that like button below to let me know. If you want more of what you saw here today, hit the subscribe and bell icons below. You can even leave a comment down below telling me what your favorite dragon was, or what you thought of today's game, or how you build your teams. Join us here every Monday for more awesome obscure games, and I'll see you there.